Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Payne.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here at the Sunset Gower Studios with Universal Broadcasting Network, and then every Thursdays at 7, Saturdays at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News radio channel, KCAA, AM 1050 and FM 106.5. And this is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kardashian talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality life, your reality show, and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And so I have guests and topics that address how we can get to that point. And today is a very, very special day for us if you're American. And I actually chose to be American after 9/11. I was born in Canada, but that's another show. But I am here. So I'm pretty serious about my relationship with America. And yes, it is Election Day. And yes, I get to broadcast live. And I was, my eye caught on an article from USA Today that said, red blood, blue blood. I don't know if I'm going to get the exact name of it right, but it said, what are we going to do after? Like, this is one of the most, if not the most divisive campaign processes. The debates were, the highest views. There are more people who are registered to vote now than there ever has been. So that's the good news. The bad news is I've never had quite so much personal angst myself around, I caught myself on Facebook seeing which ones of my friends liked Donald Trump. And I was like, what? How could they do that? And so I knew that it was time to practice what I teach, which is how do we find peace and how do we make America whole again? And I couldn't think of two better guests to bring, women who are strong, and I actually got to meet them doing some work in this area of women leadership and finding the peace and not waiting for the men to do it. And I actually was honored to be invited to speak at her event at City Hall. And I'm talking about Soraya Deen. She's a lawyer, author, communication strategist, peace activist, and interfaith consultant, and sought-after inspirational speaker. Soraya is the founder of the Muslim Woman Speaker Movement, working to create 10,000 voices of hope, peace moms, and is now the co-founder of the Women's Voice Project. She blends her legal expertise with her uniquely diverse background to inspire people and communities to navigate conflict, promote dialogue, and human connection. And then her best friend, who's Jewish, by the way, Phillipa Sklaar, is an author, speaker, and advocate as well. She was born and raised in South Africa during apartheid. Her father, the mayor of Johannesburg, fought to eliminate racism, so she was introduced to fighting injustice from a very young age. Phillipa is the co-author of 2 books, The Affair and When Loving Him Hurts. She's actively worked and continues to work and speak to ACT to End Violence Against Women. She's also the other co-founder with Soraya of the Women's Voice Project, whose mission is to reduce violence and end bullying by educating and empowering women and all victims of abuse. Welcome to my studio, Soraya and Phillipa.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Thank you. Well, you guys wrote it. Just kidding. I actually cut in.
I noticed the tweets.
Did you notice
yes,
that?
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not going to charge either. But welcome, and thank you for accepting the invitation, and especially not just because of the work you do, but because of who you are and, your diverse background. You are Muslim. You are Jewish. I'm Chinese with, my mother was adopted by a Russian Jew. So I have an Aunt Moishi and an uncle.
That's amazing.
Yes. And Aunt Golda and all of that. And at the same time, I have very strong Chinese roots, and I was born in Canada. And I am, I know I'm supposed to be, fair and balanced reporting, but I was concerned with the hate. So I joined the Love Trump's Hate group, and so I'm going to be honest. That's who I'm voting for, and
Me too.
and you're voting too, and you're voting as well. Okay, so we have three, voters for Hillary. And I did want to, but this show is not about bashing Trump as much as I want to. It is not. It is particularly, specifically on how do we move past today? How do we get to the point where hate does not, the language of hate, the feelings of hate, how do we respect someone? Let's say he does get in office. How do you respect someone that you don't like? How do you find collaboration when you don't agree with anything that the other person stands for? So I thought we would talk about that. So let's start with that question.
Okay. Gosh.
The easy one.
In 10 minutes, how to get along.
Yes.
Thank you, Marissa. It's a great joy and an honor to be on your show today. Thank you for this opportunity, because I'm a firm believer evil prevails when good people do nothing. So when you bring us here and hear our voices, that can make a difference.
Yes.
And let us not forget, today our country is in a crisis.
Yes.
People of goodwill must unite. So my father, I grew up in Sri Lanka. One of the fundamental lessons he taught me was putting someone down does not make you better. So whether it is Mr. Trump, who has in no uncertain terms expressed his fear and disdain and sometimes maybe a hate towards the Muslims, I stand here strong, I stand here firm, and I stand here with all the truth in me that I love that person. I'm called to love that person.
Yeah.
Because there's no two ways.
Yeah.
Because we are all busy looking to be peaceful, to create peace.
Yes.
When the answer is within. Yes. So that is my message. That is our message. No matter what happens on the outside, we can transform the world if we show up with love.
Now I'm going to put the moose on the table because you do, you're not hiding. You're proud to be Muslim. You are a voice of Muslim women. You're living in America where Islamophobia is real now. It's not just a concept. It's real. It's active. And I've heard some Americans say, but how do we have to fear, we have to hate that which hates us. 9/11 wouldn't have happened without the Muslim terrorists. ISIS is happening because of that. All of the things that have been attributed to Muslim are being held against it. Now, I don't feel that way, but for the people who are listening, and I have a huge cross section, and I'm so grateful that my listeners are open-minded enough to hear what I try to bring here, which is the balance. So what do you say to that? Like, how do you, someone who's, the average person who only hears what is said on the news, and what it is brought to us is that people who of the Muslim faith hate Americans. They hate what we represent. That's why they're killing us. That's why they're doing what they're doing. And you are a Muslim. How do you answer that?
Well, I see there's just one way, and that is to communicate, to reach out and communicate. Early on, I led a campaign challenging Mr. Trump. I said, talk to us, not about us. And it's this firm belief that at some point, there will be a breaking point. There will be a moment where he would say yes. And that's exactly why when I work with the Muslim Women Speakers Movement, I always say we have to tell our stories, otherwise somebody else is going to do it for us.
Right.
So this symbiotic relationship, building on it, is something that we do relentlessly. And in that process, there are some people who can be in our hearts but not in our lives. So to understand how much of the other can we take with us, there are restrictions, there are lines, there are limitations, but we have to begin with the end in mind. In this beautiful country, we have come a long way to say no to hate and bigotry and to celebrate diversity. So that is our end.
So the way I've heard you say it, and other women too, and in the news is, you don't call terror. You don't say something terrorist. You just say terrorist. But isn't it interesting how here we say Muslim terrorists, where it's not all Muslim are terrorists. The very small group of people who are committing terrorist acts are now, but they use their faith. I guess that's a question I always wanted to answer, have answered for me, and now I got you in the hot seat. So what do you say, or how do you explain Muslims who do acts of terrorism, who say, I'm doing this because of my Muslim faith?
Yes, of course, the most powerful word I've come to understand is this word intersectionality. There are intersections in our life, and there are people who are harming this world, and some are, of course, the Muslim, the terrorists who are claiming to be Muslims.
Yes.
And they're radicals and extremists in every faith, in every community. So I think what is important for us to do as Americans, and for us to do as peace-loving people of goodwill, we have to really stop the blame and the shame of communities. That has to be the starting point.
Yes.
Because, I mean, there is terrorism, and let's work together. Let's work together, because this conversation is not even about us, it's about our children. Teaching them, showing them, and leading them.
And so the statement that just because you believe and practice Islam, you don't hate Americans.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, as stupid as that sounds to say, I really hear people make that connection. And so I want to make sure that's not true.
I know that's a great question, because to understand that question, we have to know where we are coming from. There are 4 things that are being said about Muslims. 1, that we don't love America. 2, that we are terrorists. 3, that we are trying to impose a Sharia law. And 4, that we are trying to subvert the Constitution. And when you look at 3 million people, 0.3% of the people are Muslims.
In America.
Yes. And there's no way that it can even, in our wildest dreams, even if we want to, I'm not saying we ever want to, this is a fallacy. This is something, this is a hype. This is a fear machine that is really running its course. And we have to always ask, is this true? Is this true?
Is it true?
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yes.
It is not true.
Yes. Thank you.
So stand, and when you hear people saying one of those 4 things, you say, I'm sorry. I heard it on. I heard it from the mouth of the founder of the, and I've heard it, and I think what you said earlier. What you permit, you promote. If you don't stand up and say that's not true, like should Trump actually win, I'm afraid for all of the people who identify as Muslims. It's almost like permission now to hate. Right? So Islamophobia is just going to go skyrocket. Should Trump get elected? And I really, so if it does happen, please know the truth. And the truth is those 4, they don't hate Americans, right? They don't want to say those 4 again. I really want this driven home.
Because Marissa, home for us is America.
Yeah.
Why would we even hate our country?
Yeah.
It's not where my grandparents were born.
Yeah.
It's where my children and my grandchildren will be raised. So if what happens to America it affects us all.
Yes.
So when people say Muslims are terrorists, that's not true. When people say Muslims don't love America, that's not true.
Right.
There are doctors and lawyers and
You're a lawyer.
moms. I'm a lawyer. Yes, I'm moms, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
Then to say that we want to introduce a new law, we don't want to. The Constitution is one of the most sacred and the beautiful documents in this ever to be produced, and we love it, we respect it.
Yeah.
And then fourthly, to say that we support terrorism, it's not true, because 80% of the people killed by the terrorists are Muslims.
Say that again.
Yes,
I think that's right.
Yes,
80?
80% of the Muslims, of the people killed by the terrorists are Muslims.
80%.
Yes.
80. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And I always say, I share this not because I am weak, but because I need to remain strong. And I can't remain strong unless we come together.
Yes, yes. And and that is our challenge, our choice.
Yes.
Our choice. I get asked to speak. One of the topics is on valuing diversity. And the title of the talk is, why can't we just get along? And then I go sit down because I say, because we can't. We can't just get along. We have to work at it.
Yes.
Ergo, this show, ergo, busting some of the BS, the belief systems that are keeping us apart and in hate. Phillipa, you've been very patiently sitting.
Oh, I'm so interested in listening.
Wonderful. So you have firsthand experience with hate.
Yes. On a few levels, actually.
On a few levels. And you've written books about them. And abusive relationships, bad guys you thought started out were good. And I'm sure you hated and felt the kind of, how do you get over it? How do you, like, let's say, because I need this for myself. I have a real problem listening to anyone who spouts hate and who capitalizes on people's fear. And I'll give you one guess who I'm talking about. So I know that I need to also turn what I'm thinking about him around. So give me some pointers.
Okay. I had so much that I wanted to interject with what your conversation, but if we've got time, I'll come back to it. Going through abuse and going through, abuse, there are many different kinds of abuse. I mean, I experienced abuse against women. I experienced domestic violence, emotional abuse, physical abuse, the abuse growing up in South Africa against black people. So, my life has been kind of dogged by all this abuse. And for years and years I struggled with healing from domestic violence. And what I discovered on my journey, I discovered many things, but one of the most important things that I've done, which I still do on a daily basis, and it really is about retraining our minds. For instance, when you say somebody says something that's hateful, how do you not respond and get angry?
Right.
Well, from being an abused woman, I never ever thought I ever had the choice to do anything. I thought that it was wired in my DNA, that this is who I was, that I was this poor victim that had been singled out. I didn't know that I had the power to choose my thoughts, who I wanted in my life. And after having gone through abuse and I'm understanding the power that we all have within us, I now have the power to choose who I want in my life and what thoughts I want and what feelings I want. And what I've discovered is that we always tend to look at a situation or hear somebody speaking, or we have somebody does something to us, and then we separate it. We start giving it a story. We start giving it an interpretation. So the story is, when you hear this hateful speech, how terrible it is. We come with our judgments and our labels. So what is it? This person, everything outside of us is really neutral. It's our story that we're projecting on it that's creating our distressful thoughts. So witnessing somebody like a Trump who's sprouting all this hate and divisiveness, instead of seeing it in that kind of a way where our thoughts are going to actually crucify us in terms of making us angry and upset, recognize that what he's doing, that, I like to think that that's where he is on his evolutionary cycle, actually. That if that's what he needs to do, he's doing it, whether we like it or not, he's doing it. It's accepting the isness of the moment, not resisting it, because what you resist persists. So seeing that, I like to think what Martin Luther King says, that the arc of the moral universe tends towards justice. And having gone through apartheid, we went through this, the similarities between what's going on now and during apartheid, it's chilling. We also were terrified at one stage when apartheid was just being coming to an end and they were going to release Mandela. There was this faction called the AWB, and these people and the Nationalist Party, the voters were identical to the voters of Trump supporters. And we were terrified that there would be all this, we also thought that there was terrorism and brutality that would transpire. And what was amazing, that all that hate actually burnt itself out and it disappeared, and they just... No one ever heard about them again. And I know that it's difficult to think of that now when you see the numbers.
Right.
But I have to tell you, I believe in the goodness of America. The ironic thing is that his thing was make America great again. I think this election will make America great again, because we will refuse to go along that path of divisiveness and hate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Love does trump hate.
Without doubt.
Yeah. That's my hope and my belief system and my choice to believe, because I choose to believe that I live in a friendly universe.
I want to say something about this word choice.
Yes.
I believe Dr. King teaches us this so magnificently. He was once at an event and somebody came up to him and asked, "Are you king?" So Dr. King looks up at him and says, "Yes." And this person takes a mouthful of spit and spits it at Dr. King. Dr. King reaches for his pocket, pulls out a handkerchief, wipes the spit and says, "Here, this belongs to you." So I know. So when we speak to youth, because we are very severely focused on youth and women, we always say, no matter what happens, you have a choice. You can choose how you respond. And this is not the only story of choice, Marissa. Look at what Mother Teresa did. She was stoned because she went to care for the unloved and the uncared for. But she went ahead. What about Nelson Mandela, where he's coming from, Philippa's own former country? Of course, he was in jail for 27 years. When he came out, what did he say? "I won't let them take a second of my life." So he chose to forgive. So I think today in America, no matter what happens, we have a choice. And that choice has to be for the betterment of America, for the betterment of Americans, and for the betterment of the world. And that has to begin with love.
It has to start here.
It has to start here.
So the most powerful tool that we have in life that I think many of us don't realize, and you alluded it to yourself, we have choice. Not just choice to vote red or blue. It's a choice on how we respond to any of this. So let's say on the issues, you don't agree with the issues that maybe your friends do, or someone in the Republican Party, on gun control or abortion and all of these issues. So I have a choice to say, I'm right and you're wrong, right? And that usually gets me to anger, hostility, and then I know from my training that those two feelings and emotions lead to my cells not functioning properly. My immune system goes to pot, not literally. And then, since that's on the ballot, but there's three emotions that make my heart sing and my cells function right: love, peace, and creativity. So I have a choice that when someone disagrees with me, I can either choose to see them as wrong and get angry with them and then build that up into finding people who are like that and then blaming them and going to attack them verbally. Or I can say, I feel as strongly about this as they do about that. And they are not the key figure in my story. I am. Don Miguel Ruiz. And they are the key actors primary actors in their life, and that's their choice.
Yes, and then to equip ourselves with some tools. Now we teach nonviolent communication. It's like the difference between black and white.
Yeah.
How do we learn to make an observation versus a judgment?
Yeah. So if I came to you and said, how could you think that way? I mean, that's stupid. What you think is stupid. Like, what person in their right mind would want to vote for someone who's clearly anti-woman, nasty woman? How could you think that way? Now, I have friends who actually are big, and I want to say that to them, but I am not going to say that to them.
You know what it is? We always think that if people don't agree with us or aren't on the same page as we are, we take it personally, that it's a personal affront to us, which is such a crazy, puny way of looking at life. We're so much bigger than that. Why not just let people do what the hell they want? You don't have to take it on and take it as a personal insult. It's like driving on the road and somebody swerves in front of you and you get angry and you throw the finger. If it wasn't you in that car, it would have been somebody else. What is it that the road belongs to us? Why would we sell our serenity that cheaply? And I have that same thing. Every morning I have this morning ritual, and one of the things you say, your 3 things of joy, of what makes your heart sing.
Right.
I have a commitment every single day that I choose joy. And that's what my belief system is. So anything that happens in the day, I put against that. Is this going to bring me joy or not? And the only one that's responsible is me.
Yeah.
Because think of it, take offense. You actually have to reach out and take it. Don't take it.
Good point. Good point.
And then going back to what you said, you hear somebody say, "Oh, how could you be this stupid?" So you just don't react, but you learn to respond. Oh, so you think I'm being stupid? You just go with the flow.
And I say yes. And then what do you say?
So may I know why you're saying that?
Well, it's so clear in the news. Everything that is there points to a man who is just bringing us backwards, not forwards.
So for you, it seems really clear that Mr. Trump is going to take us backwards and not forward.
Correct.
Yeah. So at that point, Marissa, that is where we establish a connection. Because now I have acknowledged where you are. Most of us don't go there in our communication because we are we want to fix the other person. We don't want to listen. We have the solution.
Okay.
So when you stay engaged in that level of conversation, not because you want to be manipulative, but because it's the right thing to do, there you see the birth of a new possibility.
So then you would say, that is actually something I am really interested in too, is furthering America.
Yes.
Is that what you would say?
No. Then I would say, okay, so you feel this person is going to say something. Wow, even I have those same concerns. Like you, I don't want America to go back but forward. So we go into this dance, a waltz, that is so beautiful. Because here, now you're hearing the other person, not just listening, but hearing. And that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work.
But it's like you can't. That's why they say don't talk about religion and politics, because you're so staunched, you're so rooted in what you believe that there's nothing that anyone can say that's going to change your mind. In psychology, the phenomenon is called Pygmalion effect. You see what you believe and you believe what you see. So whatever your thought patterns are and whatever belief system you had, that's the data you see. The Bay of Pigs was groupthink, and we're seeing that a lot now. At least I'm calling it such, where even the data, the ones Republicans who have not turned, even when the data is there to show who that person is, they still can't hear it because they don't allow anything to contradict the belief system they have. So I don't know. I mean, I totally support, nonviolence and communication, but I am wondering, is this something that we can really actually do, change, further, are not we better off just not talking about it?
Well, that's why, this is why the Reconciliation Committee, why the whole process, why that was so successful in South Africa, because you had these people with such diametrically opposed views. But when they came together and spoke and told their story, all of a sudden they saw each other as human. And that's all we need to do. We don't have to take on our position. Our position is less important than our humanness. And that's what we get when we engage in conversation. You know, I see with Soraya when I'm with a group of Muslim women and we go into churches. We were in an evangelical church a few weeks ago, and these people were quite hostile when we first came in. And just by hearing the stories of these wonderful, amazing Muslim women, you could see their whole faces changed. And that's all that's really needed.
Right.
And then you know, we are a Christian nation. I mean, we say so because the majority of people are Christians. So what did Christ teach us? When he was being crucified, he said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. I mean, that is the sense that I embody every day. I'm a Muslim, but I learn from that. So it's one thing to go to church and learn good things, but we have to practice it.
Yes.
And that where the rubber meets the road. Every day you wake up and you practice an act of kindness.
Yeah.
Then in 1 week you have done 7 acts. Then in 1 year, 365. Thereafter you are a different person.
Yes.
So we don't want to look for quick fixes, big solutions. Let's take
It's not a
tiny
light
steps.
switch.
Yes.
Not a light switch, and it's not instant.
Yes.
Unfortunately for me, patient me.
There are moments, some people, especially your family, they can press the right buttons because they know where those buttons are.
Yes. And if you've just tuned in, you are listening to the election broadcast live from Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, with my two fabulous, strong, wise women, Soraya Deen, who is the founder of Muslim Women Speakers, and Phillipa Sklaar, author, Jewish, and grew up in South Africa during apartheid, and so both of these women are very well versed, and if you've already tuned in for a while, you can see with lots of great ideas on how we make America whole again after today. So, or even after you vote. But it is that time of the show where I thank the sponsors who make this show possible. So we'll be back in 2 and 2. Peace in and peace out.
Do you want more life balance? Are you 88% happy with your health and well-being, your relationships, your livelihood? If yes, do the abundance. If no, and you'd like a life balance tune-up and align those head, heart, spark plugs and smog check the BS belief systems that are clogging your lifelines, contact Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura at www.4balance.org for a session on the air or a private one on the beach.
Remember the movie The Secret? Well, come to Carnegie Hall, New York, and celebrate the Lifetime Achievement Tribute for Bob Proctor, the father of personal development, November 14th and 15th. Join Dr. Marissa, the Asian Oprah, and the who's who of personal development, including other secret teachers, Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, Laura Langemeyer, and more for an event to remember. For tickets, go to www.moderndaymillionaire.com. That's moderndaymillionaire.com. And welcome, you are back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios at Universal Broadcasting Network, and then syndicated every Thursday at 7 and Saturday at 1 on my CNBC News Radio channel, home to Dave Ramsey, Stephanie Miller, and Wolfman Jack. That's KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.5. And yes, it is Election Day. Please, please, please go out and use the gift of being American called choice and vote. Mm-hmm. Put your vote where your complaint is and don't complain. We'll be talking about the balance in the balance bar, my 21-day fast for complaining with Dr. Marissa. It's been a tough month for me not to complain. And my guests today are Soraya Deen, who is the co-founder, along with Phillipa Sklaar, of the Woman's Voice Project. And we're talking about how do we move forward in making America whole again throughout this blue and red difference. And the article that I was talking about that's really good, that actually looks at other examples in Britain and how people got over the divisiveness. It's called Red Blood, Blue Blood. How do we begin to heal after Clinton versus Trump? Heal the nation, ? So it's a great article if you want to read it. And as well, we've gotten some really practical tools tools to use, communication. I do want to get to that moose on the table question. Isn't it just easier not to try to work at getting along? So why? Of course, I know why. But what are the benefits of actually trying to get understanding between groups? Like, why are we even bothering? Some it's like, I can't wait for this election to be over. I'm tired of listening to all of this. It's stressing me out. Just whoever it is, whatever, and the fear that it's not going to be accepted and there's going to be another, hanging Chad thing from Florida or whatever it is. But what's the whiffum here? Why do we want to get to a place where we are less hate-filled, or that we understand differences better, or can we get there?
Well, again, going back to Dr. King, he said, if you don't talk and if there's hate in your heart, it is a negative thing. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
So what Dr. King said was, darkness cannot throw out darkness, only light can.
Yeah.
So if we are looking at healing our country, we have to start talking to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't necessarily have to agree with everything. I mean, I have a teenager son and I have a daughter, and we don't agree on many things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is one's ability to see the other person's point of view. It's very critical, because today this brokenness we have never experienced.
Mm-hmm.
It's beyond a not talking.
Right.
It's like take a gun and shoot the other person kind of hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can't fester, Marissa, because we know, you and I know, Phillipa knows, there's an energy field out there. This is not about, what we see and feel and hear, but what we don't see. You walk into a room and where there's tension, you just feel it. Nobody has to even speak. So we are in a country where there's so much tension.
Yeah.
So I think not talking is not an option, but how do we talk? When do we talk? What skills and tools do we use to talk?
Yeah.
Is critical knowledge for all of us to acquire.
Yeah.
Because as leaders, we have to be curious, we have to be learners.
Yes.
We can learn so much from Mandela. There were two amazing incidences that actually changed the tide in South Africa. The first was when he came out of prison. He had his prison warders sitting in the front row of his inauguration when he became president, which was remarkable. But the other thing he did was during the World Cup, and the country was up in arms because half the country insisted that the Springbok team change their uniform and change their name. And you must know that the Springboks...
There's a movie about this.
Yes, there was, Invictus. And the Springbok team was only with white Afrikaans men. I think there was one man on there who was coloured. In South Africa, they are called coloured.
Yes.
And the majority of the black people in South Africa were up in arms. There was going to be a revolution. And what does Mandela do? He didn't have a conversation. He ran onto the field wearing Francois Pienaar's rugby jersey, and the country went hysterical. And just that incident united all of us. And those are the kind of gestures that we need now, that kind of greatness. The smallest things with an action says much more than words can.
Yes. Lao Tzu, one of my favorite saying, he says, when in the absence of greatness, pettiness prevails. Yeah. So we need as Americans to take this election and what has happened and the good part and see the good thing. The good thing about this election that was brought up in a couple shows ago when I did the sexual healing with Dr. Marissa, and listening to the way Trump, the nasty women comments and all of that. The good news about that is it took the scab off of the infection.
I agree with that. I think that's a good thing.
So yes,
we know what we're dealing with now.
We know what we're dealing with, and the whole, last week I had Michael McPherson from Veterans for Peace, and his comment too was, we haven't healed from the Civil War, and now all of this hate and all of this, hatred talk and discrimination is bringing to the surface areas to heal. I thought that was the most beautiful.
It was.
It's like this. we can look at it as the horrible thing, America's going to hell in a handbasket and how bad things are. Or we can say, the greatest thing about this divisive campaign was we know what we're dealing with now. We know where we have come a long way, and we know where we definitely have not come a long way. So we can deal with it, and we can do our part to say more than, I have friends who are Muslim, I eat with them, or they're my neighbor, but instead engage in a dialogue, engage in an understanding. I have to say that I never would have thought to bring you on, when I started the show, and because I tried to read the Quran, and it just didn't go very well. And so my way of dealing with it was, you believe what you want to believe, and I'll believe what I want to believe, and I'm not going to try to change your mind, and don't try to change mine. And I realized in the last couple of years that doesn't work, because this is still separation. My keeping you at arm's distance is not healing the rift that continues to feed into all that we see with the police being shot and Black Lives Matter and the ISIS and the ISIL. All of that stems from a systemic root of separation, of patriotism that is not planetary. Planetary patriotism, when we care more about the human race than we do about our gross national product and how many resources I have more than you, that's when no child will be hungry. That's when every child will have education. When we get to that systemic 80,000-foot look at the world and the planet, that's when love will trump hate.
So Gandhi said one of the 7 evils is politics without principle. And I even say, why don't our leaders lead us to a world of compassion?
Yeah.
They can, but they choose not to. And why burden the people again with another thing to do? Not that we are not doing it, but we're doing it. But look at a situation where Mr. Trump stands tall with a Muslim next to him and says, these are our brothers and sisters. They're doctors and lawyers and engineers, and they are students. They're contributing. We all need to come together. I mean,
he did that recently.
Did he do that? Did he? Where?
Well, maybe he didn't do that, but my 83-year-old mom she's in Canada, because I was born in Canada, and she called me last night, and she knew I was doing this show, and she said, you probably should turn the TV on. I said, I don't want to hear another. And she goes, no, he's kind of changing his tune. I said, are you kidding me? So he was sort of going in that direction. That would be I know people would have a heart attack if he actually got to that point, but that is where, if I give him the benefit of the doubt that he could get to that would be awesome.
Yeah. And look at what Trudeau is doing in Canada, so I think we have to also shake our leaders and call for them, give them a higher standard and unite America.
Yes. You were going to say something, Philly.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of the similarities with abuse, how to handle this craziness, this insanity. Because the way, I saw Trump as this big bully, and what he did initially was actually paralyzed us all in this feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, that there was absolutely nothing we could do about it. And that's really being stuck in victimhood. But what I found is that when you take something out, when you actually get out of denial and you actually look at it, like, for instance, being an abused woman, for 7 years, I never ever said a word about it to anybody because I was so ashamed. And this is common with abused women. So here we are in America with all this festering hatred that seems to be coming out of the woodwork. Well, it was always there, but nobody ever really looked at it. We're now looking at it.
Yes.
Now we can fix it. Dr. Phil often says you can't acknowledge something that you can't change something that you don't acknowledge.
Yeah.
Well, now we've got this issue. Now let's fix it.
Yeah. Great point. So tell me a little about Women's Voice Project.
Well, we're two women who want to change the world, and help every single woman and abuse victim.
Small.
Exactly. It's the reason why Soraya and I met up. We have exactly the same message, but from completely different directions.
Right.
She's a Muslim. I'm a Jew. Her thing is nonviolent communication. Mine is my experience with abuse and apartheid and injustice, and we have the same ideas in terms of how to speak and how to get the message across and how to live our lives. Actually, that being And I can tell you what's marvelous is having Soraya doing this with her every day is that when I'm having a moment where I'm stuck, she can remind me, and get me back on track, and vice versa. So what our aim is that everybody, for instance, from an abusive point of view, everybody looks at the effect and tries to fix the effect, like trying to fix domestic violence through shelters and hotlines. That does nothing to reduce domestic violence. Our thing is to go into the cause. Where's the cause? With school kids, with young boys. We're focused on preventative and preventing issues from arising rather than trying to fix something when it's already done. So our whole thing is to go into schools. Who learns ever how to have a relationship? Nobody. This is something we should be taught at school.
Yeah.
So we go in and we teach young girls what the warning signs are of abuse so that they can recognize it when they're presented with an abusive relationship. Young boys are taught how to nonviolent communication, what it's like through an abused woman's eyes, so they might think twice about raising their fist. And we teach them skills about how to have relationships, not only with others, but with themselves. So our whole thing is to get into schools and colleges and to start the change at grassroots level.
Great.
And for me, also, I agree with everything we are doing. Also, something really important is, everybody knows Malala, right?
Yes.
Malala, the girl
Yes,
who was
beautiful.
shot
By the Taliban.
because she said education for girls.
Right.
Look at that. That's again the terrorist shooting a Muslim. My vision is I want to have 100 Malalas in the world. A girl from Afghanistan, Syria, Argentina, Pakistan, who hears this voice of hope from the West, from America. Because when Vivekananda, he was a famous guru, went back to India after his famous speech in Chicago during the Parliament of the World Religions, he said, give me 100 committed volunteers. I'll transform India. There weren't 100. So what I am looking is how can I and Phillipa together empower these girls to challenge patriarchy? There's a lot of that in my community.
Sure.
How can these girls say no to misogyny? These are two things that we are passionate about in addition to. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. I know. Time flies when you're having fun. She just saw the clock. And I just got the sign from Jarvis. It is time to wrap up. So any last words that you would have on how do we make America whole after this?
Yes,
Yeah.
through women. Through women, and we'll have Hillary Clinton as the woman to lead it as well, and we'll all be on the ground, on the grassroots, fixing it too.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I would say keep it small. We can't change the terrorists in Iraq and Iran and all over, but we can change our community.
Yes.
Take personal responsibility, reach out, communicate. And I say that to my community and also to people around us.
Absolutely. So if you're in charge of any kind of organization and you're looking for speakers, it would be good to have a Muslim woman speaker come and share. The same way I had one on my show. Be curious instead of afraid of differences. Go out and learn something new that you didn't know about someone. Find something positive to say about someone that you don't necessarily respect. You can try not to lie, but you can that during that one debate. I love that last question. It's like right up Dr. Marissa's alley. What's one thing you do appreciate about the other person?
It's softened everybody. It's softened everybody.
Yes.
And then, Marissa, again to say, by 2050, we are going to have 10 billion people. Our children, our grandchildren will be struggling for resources.
Yes.
We have to not just leave our legacy, we have to live it.
Yes.
So that we have a generation that will be peacemakers.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Phillipa and Soraya, for coming on the air with me and talking about this.
Thank you.
And it is the end of the show where I invite you to step up to my balance bar. The 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa, round 64 is in full swing. We are on day 8, and it's drive-by compliment day. Do it to people around. Tony, I'm complimenting you for always having fabulous ideas and running a fabulous studio. Jarvis, you are not only good looking, but you're very skilled with your show sound engineer as well as producing for me. Thank you very much. Phillipa, I love the way that you are beautiful on the outside and beautiful on the inside. Soraya, your ability to communicate is outstanding, and I'll compliment myself. I have a joy for life that just overflows. So that's your job on the 21-day fast from complaining today. It's day 8. 8 compliments throughout the day that will keep you from complaining. And it's not too late to register. Go to my website, the number 4, balance.org. And then if you don't complain for 21 days in a row, you'll get a free pack of my motivational cards. And this is the third and last Asian Oprah giveaway for Carnegie Hall. Thanks to PJ in New York planning Bob Proctor's lifetime tribute. Next week, I have another pair of tickets valued at over $500 to give away. The first person to like Dr. Marissa, get one other friend to like Dr. Marissa, and have them message me gets that last free pair of tickets. And I will see you at Carnegie Hall November 14th and 15th. And if you missed their wisdom interview, it's on my YouTube as well. I do have giveaways from my guests today. Phillipa, you have a copy of your book, When Love Hurts. And you can go to my website, drmarissa.tv, and put in the subject line "When Love Hurts," and you'll get that. Him hurts. When loving him hurts. Yes. Oh, yeah, the song is called "When Love Hurts." And then Soraya has kindly given a T-shirt and a book called "The Mastering the Art of Success." Oh, Bob Proctor's on there, or Jack Canfield, and a T-shirt, "Mothers for Peace," and. There you go. Thank you so much for the Asian Oprah giveaways, 3 of them today. And next week, it is call-in week with 2 listeners getting their life tires balanced and belief systems BS smog checked. And it's called "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" in work and romantic relationships. So keep it tuned to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balance with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.